And good evening, everybody. Welcome back, take two, to
Take two.
to Hoops
If you don't
HD's.
want, if you don't know what we mean by that, don't worry about it.
Yeah, this is Hoops HD's Under the Radar video podcast. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined by David Griggs over there. David, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Uh, we are here for the Under the Radar, and David, can you tell us all what it means to be under the radar? What is this Under the Radar podcast stuff about?
Yeah, well, we do it every week, and essentially it is a review of all of the conferences that we classify under the radar. And by that, it is not the Power Five, so not the ACC, SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, or Pac 12, nor is it the other multi-bid leagues such as the Big East, the Atlantic 10, the American, and now the West Coast. The other disqualifier is a team that's in the top 25. And I think John, did I get everything? Stalika?
John's not here today, David.
Well, he's not?
No, John's not here.
Okay. He normally is.
Yeah.
So.
But one of the conferences that did get relegated down to under the radar this year in their second consecutive year where they're looking like a single bid league is the Mountain West.
Yes.
And we had a little bit of news out of the Mountain West today. Before we actually start going through some of the teams in the standings, ColoradoWin.com, Matt Stevens and Kelly Kyle actually reported there about an investigation that happened, I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago, into their head coach, Larry Eustace. Dave, do you have a little news on a little information on what happened there?
Yes, I think allegations arose within the program. This was all internal. None of it was legal or anything like that. Of him basically creating an environment that was abusive and, I guess, intimidating. I don't know if those were the exact words they used or not, but that was the gist of it. Some of the examples that they gave was that he used bad language with his assistant coaches and players. Dropped a lot of 4-letter words, used a lot of things in a derogatory way, and that he was impulsive. Like, some of his behavior involved breaking dry erase boards and throwing full cans of soda at a wall. One of the investigators had recommended that they terminate him with cause, which just essentially means firing him without giving him any sort of a buyout. The school opted not to do that. And it's important to reiterate that this happened back in 2014. So a lot of water has gone under the bridge since this was even a thing. It's probably not even a thing anymore. It just happened to get out into the news.
Yeah, and being a Rutgers alum myself and having had a few head coaches at my school that have done a few improper things maybe over the years, what was accused at Rutgers, for example, or of the head coach at GW or the head coach at Morehead State, Sean Wood.
College of Charleston thing.
Doug Wojcik over there, yeah.
Right. Again, I don't believe his behavior was appropriate, but I don't think it was so inappropriate that it warranted anything more being done than what was done. I think they basically called him on it, told him to knock it off, put together, I forget how they worded it, but it was a self-improvement plan. And again, it's probably not even a thing. He wasn't assaulting players like we saw out of Sean Woods and a few other coaches. He wasn't verbally or mentally abusive, or physically or verbally abusive, at least not to the extent that we've seen. He wasn't making up outrageous stories like we heard out of GW and the athletic director and what he did with the practice tapes and how he enjoyed watching them. I'll leave it at that.
Need to go there, no.
Right, but I mean, it wasn't anywhere near that level. I don't think it warranted termination. I just think it needed to be reeled in, and it was.
It was, assuming that it was, I agree with you. I don't think it merits termination, and we'll get to the Mountain West in a little while here. But he actually has his team in first place right now. We're going to get to that in a few. But let's go ahead. I'm going to do is pull up the screen share here that hopefully this time around will work.
Right.
We had some technical difficulties in the tape that nobody will ever see, and I've already deleted it. But
okay. Yes.
But there we go. I think we can see them, David. Can we see them?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We got the Southland up here, so that's our featured conference this week.
Yes, but before we actually discuss it, you see the screen here. For those of you who are new to the show, can we still see it?
Yeah.
Okay, there it is. Those of you that are new to the show, there's a lot of information here. We've got teams' conference and overall records, their RPI, their strength of schedule. The resume ratings in red here are things like the KPI, ESPN strength of record, and our colleague Joby Fortune's nitty gritty ratings, which David, they're missing for some reason.
Yeah. He only rates them as far as what he thinks the committee will be looking at. To the surprise of no one, he does not feel that they will be looking at any of these teams.
No, not for that large bid. The green ratings, predictive ratings include the Ken Palm, the BPI, the Sagarin, some other offensive and defensive ratings here as well. And teams that are in red are teams that are either ineligible or already have been eliminated from being able to possibly win the national championship.
Right.
And we'll get to some more of those later on. But Abilene Christian and Incarnate Word are transitional teams this
Yeah.
year, so they're ineligible.
Yeah, their last year of transition, they'll be in the hunt next year. And as transitional programs, yeah, those are pretty bad records, pretty bad years. But by traditional standards, they've actually done really well throughout the 4 years, I think. So,
Yes. And they're 11, 13, 10, and 14, not absolutely awful by any means.
right.
But the story in the Southland, of course, is the top of the conference, where the New Orleans Privateers actually decided they were not going to be a D1 program again about 7 or 8 years ago, started transition down to D3, and then changed their mind and decided to come back. And here they are
Yeah,
in first place.
right. And they're one of the, I mean, there's a lot of good stories in college basketball and a lot of good under the radar stories that a lot of people miss. And this is one of those good stories how they, since re entering Div 1, this is by far the best year they've had. And it's probably the best year they've had as a program since their last tournament appearance. And I want to say it was 93. They may have gone once or twice since then, but a really good year for them. The two teams right on their heels, Sam Houston State, who actually started off 0-2 and has won 9 of 11 since then, and Stephen F. Austin, who also started off, were they 4-4, Chad? I think they've won 4 or 5 in a row.
Yeah, they've won 4 in a row, including, well, both those teams, Sam Houston and Stephen F. Austin, already beat New Orleans once this year.
Yeah.
Actually, New Orleans' upcoming schedule, they've only got one game in the next 7 days. They're hosting Central Arkansas. So next week in our next under the radar, they may be still in first place, David.
Yeah, they could be. And this conference, obviously, it's not balanced. There's too many teams in there for that. But what is is it still the ladder format?
Yeah, only the top 8 teams here will even qualify for the conference tournament. So a bit of there's kind of a line here because you see the 2 red teams are actually in there between 8th and 11th. But you know, it is one game in the loss column, at least separating Southeastern Louisiana and Nicholls State in the battle for the eighth conference tournament spot, and it is a ladder format, so the top 2 teams will get a bye into the semifinals. And if New Orleans gets one of those spots, we could have a battle setting up here with Sam Houston and SFA for the other one, and those two teams will play again one more time this year.
Yeah.
That's one of the great rivalries here in the Southland, in fact.
Mm-hmm. Right. So,
all right, let's move back over here to the America East, where there are 3 teams that remain undefeated in conference play in Division One. Gonzaga, obviously undefeated overall, is one of them. Princeton's a second. Vermont here is the third, though, 14-0 in conference with their win tonight.
Yeah, and this is a really good Vermont team. They're kind of running away from the league, although Stony Brook. We'll talk about Stony Brook next, I guess, but kind of still on their heels. But Vermont, here we are with, I believe, 2 games remaining.
Yep.
And if they win one more, they clinch it outright, home court advantage, and they've by far looked like the best team all year long. I mean, not just in conference play, but even out of conference. And pretty good numbers here. Like, you look at that RPI, the KPI, those are numbers that we see teams with numbers that aren't even as good as that get at large bids, but their overall profile just probably isn't there. As impressive as it is to win that many in a row, you know, had they beaten Butler or something like that, then maybe we're talking about it, but they just didn't get that signature win.
Right, and here's that schedule. They have the second longest winning streak in the nation behind Gonzaga, actually, at the moment. The last 2 games are both at home, although they are against the second and third place teams in the conference, Albany and Stony Brook.
Right.
So that is their 2 toughest home games, at least of the year. But if they win those 2, win 3 more in the conference tournament, 13 seed, maybe even a shot at a 12, David?
Yeah, I think a 12 is absolutely as high as they can get. But if they end up on that 12 or 13 line, this is a live wire team. Their paper isn't good enough, but their team may be. We saw them play a few tough teams earlier in the year, so it'll be interesting to see what they do in that round of 64 game
The other team
if
with
they
me,
get through.
the other team we got to discuss in the America East is New Hampshire, the team of the
Yes.
people. Having had a very disappointing last couple of weeks here, they are 16-11 overall, though still at least on pace for some type of postseason bid, maybe the CIT or the like. Maybe they can win the America East tournament, though, and to do that, they've got to beat Maryland, Baltimore County for that fourth spot.
Yeah. And again, UMBC, one of the another good story in college basketball this year, but they've hit the skids a little bit. This is the team of the people, I believe.
This is the team of the
you
people.
You see that 4-game losing streak, but look at some of these losses overtime, and then, 2 of the 4 were in overtime, and it was just heartbreaking. So they've been getting screwed all year long.
This year, David, February 25th. This could be the battle for the home court in a game that they would then play again against each other.
Right. So fun storyline there.
They may play back-to-back games with UMBC. We'll see how that plays out. In fact, with Binghamton way behind everyone else in the standings, it's pretty likely, actually.
Right. There's a definite divide in this conference as well, where the transitional team is. So it's nice of them to work out that way.
Let's go ahead and switch on over here to the Atlantic Sun Conference, where we've had for the last couple weeks here this tie at the top with Gulf Coast and Lipscomb.
Yeah, kind of surprising here. Not that Gulf Coast is up here, but that Lipscomb is. And I know we touched on this last week, but let's reiterate there were signs that this would happen that I think we kind of ignored. One of which was how well they played against Belmont, albeit they lost
both times.
Yeah. And I mean, I know they lost both games, but the indications that they were good enough to be this good were there. I just think we kind of ignored it all the way through. I mean, if you see
here's the Belmont scores: 78-76.
Yeah.
And the other game was 64-62. Twice a 2-point lead. Lost both games. They were up and it really looked like they were going to win both times. And I think they lost like about 15 in a row to Belmont also. It's
right. Tennessee State, another pretty good under the radar team, took them to the wire. So we're surprised, but we're surprised because we didn't see the earmarks that this could be a pretty good team by Sun standards. Now, overall, I still think Gulf Coast is the better team, but what is the tiebreaker here, Chad?
I do not know because I believe – let's take a look here. In terms of head-to-head, they did split.
Yep.
So I think it could go to how you played against the second and third best teams. I know Gulf Coast did lose a game earlier to Upstate. Plays them again up this week on the road. Gulf Coast actually lost at home to Upstate. So Lipscomb with 2 home games has a better shot of getting through this week than Gulf Coast.
Yeah, who was Lipscomb's other loss?
Who was Lipscomb's? Let's go back to that profile here. That would be North Florida.
So Lipscomb would actually, if I understand the tiebreaker, because if you beat the higher ranked team, meaning that if this hold serves, Lipscomb swept Upstate, whereas Gulf Coast did not. Lipscomb wins the tiebreaker. And how about that?
And again, that assumes that the two of them both win out the rest of the way.
Right, yeah. Right. So real good storyline here. And another thing we like about this conference is that they do their tournament right. We've looked at 3 conferences, 2 of them of which do their tournament right.
Right.
And one that does it pretty right. They do a ladder. So.
Yeah, the Southland does a ladder, and they do it in Katy, Texas, which is fairly neutral as to everybody also. So. Yeah. Let's flip over here to the Big Sky, a conference that used to do things so incredibly right.
Yes, who now does them so incredibly wrong.
But here we are. First of all, we got to thank Northern Colorado again. There is a nice divide between 8th and 10th place here. They got after this. Northern Colorado is on as self-imposed sanctions this year, and so is ineligible for postseason play. But actually, we may have the game of the season coming up in the conference on Saturday, David. We've got North Dakota at Weber State, the top 2 teams.
Yeah, and how about North Dakota this year? I know they're just 12-8 in Div 1, but having one of their better seasons, at least that I can ever remember since they transitioned up. I want to say it was 05, 06 when they came up, but it may have been before that. But really good and really kind of on a roll here in conference play.
And they beat Weber already at home earlier this year. So at the trip to Weber, they win that. they'll not only tie them in the loss column, but they'll hold the tiebreaker for that top seed in the conference.
Right, and again, they do things wrong here, but for North Dakota to get any kind of a postseason bid like to the NIT, that's still great for a program that has not been Div 1 very long and doesn't have a whole lot of success like this. So good for them. A team still somewhat in the hunt, could still be dangerous in the conference tournament, this Eastern Washington team, but they're kind of losing their grip a little bit.
All right. Big South Conference, and
look at that.
And here we are. We kept saying Liberty wasn't for real. It was Asheville versus Winthrop. It was Asheville versus Winthrop. David, we're running out of games of the season, and Liberty's still there.
I am as surprised by that as I am by anything, not just under the radar, but by anything this year. That is, it's so preposterous. To give you an idea, they are 15-10 on the year and 13-2 in conference. So there was no indication of them being good, but they've been winning in conference and they've been beating the teams.
Non-conference, they lost to lousy teams like Lamar, Furman, Princeton, Indiana.
Whoever Central Pennsylvania College is, they barely beat them.
But look at this here. Look at this winning streak here. Seven in a row. Now, on the flip side, 2 of the last 3 at Winthrop and at Asheville. So we are going to find out over the next week and a half everything we need to know about Liberty.
Right. Like this Winthrop and Asheville team, and I believe it was last week, it was one of the more exciting games that, Winthrop went to Asheville. The game seesawed back and forth, went in the double overtime, Asheville pulling out the win. And what a game that was. And unlike previous years, the game had stakes because Asheville picking up the win and getting in the first place, that was a hugely important game because of how this conference structures its tournament, another conference that does it right.
Yes, started doing it right just this year. Regular season champion, and we got this heck of a battle here. But whoever wins it will be hosting the conference tournament. So
right, and didn't that add, Chad, so much to that game? Like how you watched it, knowing what it meant, as opposed to just it's on a neutral court.
And if we look right now, we're on pace for Liberty versus Asheville, the final game of the season. That could determine the home court.
Right.
If Liberty can do things such as win at Winthrop this weekend, which is a huge game as well.
It is. So fun finish coming up here.
All right. On the other end of things, this is David. We are under the radar, so we do decide that we are going to discuss all the conferences. So we have to discuss this one. I don't know what to say about it, though. Do you?
No, if I'm having to reach for a silver lining, Jim Les doing very well at UC Davis. When he took over, they were just recently transitional, not storied at all. I believe he finished first. Was it 2 years ago?
I think he had a first place finish, but they've never actually made the NCAA tournament. They got
right. They never have. They lost in the NCAA tournament, but here they are, albeit the league is down, but they're at the top of it. And I mean, for a team that I don't think had ever finished in the top half of the standings, for them to finish first 2 out of 3 years, great job for them, great job for the coach, and we'll see what they can do. I mean, I like them as much as anybody else in this league, which is very, very faint praise. But
well, they are on the road this week at Long Beach and at Fullerton, but I think so. While Irvine has a home game, So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. They've still got a couple weeks in the conference season left here.
Mm-hmm.
Over in the Colonial, 2 weeks ago, I was on this College of Charleston bandwagon. They had won at Wilmington. They were looking so good. And then the bottom fell out on this Charleston team. Let me show. Let's show it here. It is
right. Losing two straight and losing now. William and Mary is on a roll. We've been talking about them, but losing at home to Northeastern, it really was surprising. And now they're in a.
Indiana, that Towson win as well. Obviously, they're in trouble now.
Oh yeah. Well, and again, Wilmington's has a shot at getting inside the bubble if they win out and lose in Charleston to Charleston in the championship game. But I still think while there's a shot and while a case can be made, I think this is a one-bid league, and it'll come down to the tournament. So
And David, let's talk about that. We just talked about conferences that do things right and do things wrong. This conference tournament will be played in Charleston.
yes,
UNC Wilmington, if the standings hold, will be the first place team. Charleston will be the second place team, which means
right.
that Wilmington will have to basically play a road game in the championship game despite winning the regular season. How
Yeah,
fair is that?
it's not. And I know that these are set up, the conferences collectively agree on it, but why would you want to do that? Look at the storyline that it takes away. Like, say that this was played at campus sites. Look at how much fun we just talked about the Big South having. We'd have that same storyline here. That Wilmington College of Charleston game, as good as it was, would have had a much different storyline and a much different stakes, and it would have been better. It's just a better way to do it. Now, I realize that prior to realignment, which wasn't that long ago, this was a conference that more often than not got its first place team inside the bubble. So, and we had some great conference tournaments in Richmond back in the days when VCU, ODU, but they're not that anymore. I think that this conference, if you look at the geography, they could do it at campus sites all the way through, and it would be more fair. I think it would make the season more exciting, and it would make the tournament more exciting, quite frankly, because you'd have better atmospheres at the games.
Well, let's go. Let's keep moving here and head over to Conference USA.
They don't do it right either. Good grief.
This conference plays this tournament in Birmingham. UAB is sitting there in fourth place right now, but
Right.
with a ton of teams with 5 losses, they could easily be in and be down 10th place in 2 days, for all we know.
Right.
Uh,
And if
Middle
you're Middle
Tennessee,
Tennessee,
yeah,
tournament in Birmingham, by the way, how much are you rooting for UAB's opponents? Because you're essentially playing a semifinal game potentially. That's a virtual road game.
you could. Well, again, there's a lot to be decided here still, and a lot of games left in the conference season. They still have 2.5 more weeks left here, but. You're right. If they end up in the same half of the bracket as UAB, that could really suck for a Middle Tennessee team.
Yeah.
Although they probably don't want to be in the same half of the bracket as UTEP either.
Yeah. UTEP beating them, I guess it was the week before last,
Yes.
gotten really hot after being really, really, really cold.
Look at this 12-game losing streak, including home losses to Southeastern Louisiana,
Yeah.
Maryland Eastern Shore. And now look what they've done since January 12th.
Yeah.
7 out of 9 wins, including Middle Tennessee, UAB, blowout win at Marshall.
Yeah.
What a turnaround it's been there.
Right.
So congrats to one of our favorite coaches out there, Tim Floyd, for that great
Oh,
turnaround.
absolutely. Middle's numbers still top 40 RPI. Their resume numbers are good. Their predictive ratings good enough. If this team wins out and loses in the conference tournament, they're right on the cut line, and I mean right on it.
I agree with you. The last
Yeah.
time that I did a seed list, I did have them above the first 4 teams,
Yes.
barely. But you got to remember, if they win every game to that conference tournament final and lose there, best case scenario, they lose to Louisiana Tech. More
Mhm.
likely, they lose to a Western Kentucky who loves the conference tournaments historically. Or
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a bad loss. It's going to be a sub 100 loss.
Yeah.
Uh, the Horizon League. How about this
UC
Valpo team? Have you written them off yet, David?
Not entirely. I mean, if they win out, I mean, certainly not as far as the conference goes. And if they
I
win
mean, for
out,
that large is what I mean. Yeah.
I think their chances are less than 50% if they win out, which is grossly unfair because they have to go to Detroit, which is where Oakland is. This conference used to do it right. They used to do it more right than anyone with the double bye ladder format and the campus sites. And it just doesn't feel – I mean, I still like this league. It's still a fun league, but it just doesn't feel as fun. Now, this is quite a stretch. They can certainly build up their road wins here.
They can build their always, but this is actually 3 of their 4 toughest road games of the season at Oakland, at Wright State, at NKU. They haven't played yet. Their
Yeah.
4th most toughest one was the game at Green Bay that they got crushed in. So
Right.
this is a chance to either prove themselves that maybe they are at large worthy if they win these 5 last regular season games, or prove that they really don't belong other than by winning the Horizon League tournament.
Right.
But we'll see, especially Friday night's game in Oakland. That should be a fun one.
Yeah, that one will be, and it's a preview of what could be the conference final. So,
Yes, it is. Okay.
what do
Over
you
in the
think?
Ivy League,
Well, let's get John's opinion.
David,
Stalika.
I don't think he's here. John, did you
Well,
join us?
it's under the radar. He's always here.
Is he down below you there?
Yeah. No, I don't see him. Okay.
Well, John, we'll come back to you in a minute, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
The Ivy League, the other team that's undefeated among the under radar teams within their conference, Princeton Tigers,
Mm-hmm.
leading the way here. The big story with the Ivy League 4-team conference tournament this year, which right now it looks like we've got those 4 teams kind of separating themselves.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, the Ivy League, you would always have 1 or 2 teams run away from it, and in some years, the bid was locked up with 2 or 3 weeks to go. The thing I like about the conference tournament is that it's exciting. It opens the door to more teams, and things aren't. If there was a transitional team in this league, they'd be right there between Columbia and Brown. What a drop off!
Yeah. Penn has did win 2 games this past week. Went from 0-6 to 2-6. They do host the conference tournament at the Palestra, so that's the one team that top 4 want to keep out of that group.
Oh, and I would, Penn getting to do all the event management of the conference tournament except for play in it.
Actually, a huge game coming up Friday night, Princeton at Yale. This may be the game that Princeton falls off that undefeated list.
Yeah, that one should be a lot of fun. I still like this Yale team, even though they've given me every reason not to.
All right. Metro Atlantic and the Monmouth Hawks just keep winning.
Yep, they do. 4-game lead over the conference. I think that they've clinched at least a share of it with 4 games to left, and one more they win it outright. If they win out, it's going to be tough.
It's a nice win at Iona to end the season if they do win out there.
Right. And Iona having a much better than expected year. How about St. Peter's all the way up in second place there?
Yeah, I'll actually probably most likely be heading up to a St. Peter's game coming up this weekend against Fairfield. Right. So,
but you look at their metrics, RPI top 50, and again, we see teams with worse RPIs get at larges, but I'll say this for Monmouth, I don't think they get them in without the automatic, but if it were debate class and you were told to make an argument for them, you could.
I agree with you. I agree with that, definitely. Their games this week, home against Niagara, on the road at Fairfield, they should win both of those games.
Yeah, and John Stalika's liked them a lot this year. What do you think, John?
David, he's still not here.
Oh, well, he's normally here for Under the Radar. So. Okay. I'm just saying.
Over the Mid-American, the Akron Zips have not looked very good but they've won the games.
Yes.
Other than the loss to Ohio, they're 12-0 against the rest of the conference, blowing away the league. I think they may have already locked up the regular season title, if not close to that.
Is it 16 or 18? I think they went to an 18
game season.
Yeah.
So they need one more to tie and 2 more to win it.
But right.
I think the bigger story here is just the logjam we have among the rest of the conference. It's the battles for the 2 through 4 seeds who will get buys into the quarterfinals and have to play a first round game.
Right, and again, they went away from the ladder. I don't know why.
Several years ago.
Yeah. So again, it's just standard seeding. Akron should get a look from the committee. I mean, look at some of those numbers. The RPI very healthy. One of the problems is just not just a lack of wins against teams that are in contention for the field. It's a lack of wins against teams that are in contention for the NIT. None against the top 100. And I can only think of one case, Chad, where we've seen a team inside the bubble with no top 100 wins, and that was a Davidson team, the Elite 8 team, that also won the automatic bid. And who knows if they would have been inside the bubble had they not won that one.
Yeah, David, they really need to win at Buffalo here on February 25th, which would give them their first top 150 road win. I just don't think you get an at-large bid with no top 150 wins away from home and no top 100 wins at all. It's just
Right. Now they've avoided the bad losses with the exception of one.
So, it was the first game of the season against Youngstown.
Right.
And they got their big rivalry game coming up Friday night, hosting Kent State, and they still got to go to Kent to end the season.
Yeah. Playing them late this year. They normally, but again, it won't be easy to win at Kent either.
Talking about teams that can get at-large bids, we are not talking about the MEAC.
Yeah, not the MEAC. NC Central back on top, kind of like what we expected. Is this tournament in Norfolk?
Yes, it is.
Normally is. Okay, so again, another conference that doesn't do it right. In this league of all leagues, should probably consider it when you look at how many times the first place team has failed to win the tournament.
Yeah, you can see there, Savannah State is on postseason ban for academic progress rate. And let's talk at the bottom of the conference, David.
Yes.
The Centenary Award, the award we give here for the worst team in D1. Right in contention is North Carolina A&T, winless against Division I opponents, 2 non-D1 wins, 351 in the KPI, 350 in a lot of the other matrix, or 49.
Right. The strength of schedule is there's a team that's even worse than this.
Yeah, 339 strength of schedule.
Yeah.
They've got a week here. They're at Howard and at Maryland Eastern Shore.
Yeah.
Probably go 0-2 this week with a couple road tests there.
Right. They're definitely in the hunt. It's a 2-horse race for that bid right now. I mean, you never know when one of those two teams would go on a winning streak, but
they won't go on a winning streak.
yeah.
Yeah, but,
right.
but we're keeping an eye on A&T definitely, so we'll follow up on them as we go through the next couple of weeks here.
Yeah.
Now let's talk the other end of things when we talk at large bids, and we've got the Missouri Valley Conference up.
Yeah.
And let's start with Wichita State. 14-1 conference, 24-4 overall. Some amazing metrics here. 16 Ken Palm, 16 Sagarin.
Yeah.
That tells me that they're a lock for the tournament. Do you think they are?
If they win out the regular season, I think the committee will take them regardless of what they do in the conference tournament. They do have a lot of road wins if you pull up their profile, so you could justify it just based on that alone. Their RPI is reasonably healthy. I think that they're reasonably safe if they win their again, they've got Northern Iowa. If they win their last 3, wow, they're down to 3 now. One big at Southern Illinois tonight.
I think the committee close game at half too. They blew it out.
Yeah, it was, and then it was 60-41 when I turned it off. I something on, but if they win the next 3, I do think that they are in. Now I think
it's 4. I think they gotta. You can't be upset by the 8th seed for the quarterfinals.
Okay, you think that they need to at least avoid a loss in the quarters?
Yeah, I mean, because the loss in the quarterfinals would be to a Drake or an Indiana State, who everyone other than John Rothstein thinks is a lousy team.
Now, let me clarify that. I think the NCAA selection committee will take them. I think our committee is a little bit scattershot on them and Illinois State. You can't stand the Redbirds as far as an at-large team.
Because heading into the season, I was on the Redbirds bandwagon.
Yeah.
I was the one that said Illinois State's going to win this conference. But I do not believe that this Illinois State team, and here's their RPI breakdown, I don't even understand why they are even in the at-large bid discussion. Here we go again. 2 top 100 wins. Wichita State at home, who is only a tournament team, maybe. New Mexico at home, who is not a tournament team. 3 more wins in the top 150. Tulsa on a neutral court, St. Joe's in Northern Iowa. They have no wins against the field. They are essentially 0-1 against teams that are going to make the tournament. If we look at this Illinois State profile, they lost to TCU, or maybe 0-2 if you include or 1-2 if you include the Wichita State games.
Now, I don't actually know. Like, I think John Teitel has been projecting them in, and he's as good at guessing the committee as literally anyone. And when I say literally, I literally mean literally. But if you look at their numbers here, like the RPI in the 30s, that alone categorically you're in more often than not. And the amount of road wins that they have, I don't know what the real committee's going to do. I like them more than a lot of the garbage that's on the bubble. I certainly think that it's about a 50-50 chance for them. John Stalika, who's with us tonight, really likes them. What do you like about him, John?
I just muted him, David. He's
Oh,
not
okay.
No, Salika is still not with us, David. He is not here tonight.
Oh, well, he normally is. Like it's under the radar. He's normally with us.
Let's go over what do we got next. Actually, let's take a look over the Mountain West. We started the show talking a little bit about what's going on with Colorado State, and there they are.
How about Colorado State? Cracking the RPI top 100 again.
Exactly 100. Congratulations to them. But yeah, there they are. And this is a team that we had written off several earlier in the season, and it's only there they are, 10-4, red hot. Let's pull up that resume.
Yeah, doing it with very limited personnel,
I think they have 7 players on the entire roster at this point.
I know. And
they've won 7 out of 8.
Yeah, and as much as we've dogged this conference, and as much as this really is a remarkable accomplishment for them to be down to just 7 players or 8, to lose so many key players midway through due to injury, academics, and all these other reasons, to come in and get it done the way they've gotten it done, winning at San Diego State, winning at Utah State, winning at Wyoming the other night, and it's not easy to win there, and just really playing their way all the way up in the first place. Now, they won't get an at-large bid, but what a great story if they're able to win the conference tournament.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, when you're playing with 7 players, trying to win 3 games in 3 days is a lot different story than winning 1 game every 4 days.
Right, but they'll be hosting. Never mind. They're new to this whole under the radar.
Well, the UNLV will be hosting it, and I don't think we have to worry about that.
Right.
Let's see where we are now. Northeast Conference, and
love this conference. And how about Mount St. Mary's?
Mount St. Mary's 12-2, on the verge of locking up the regular season title here. But this is a real fun conference. LIU Brooklyn winning the Battle of Brooklyn, or I think our colleague Lee Del Vecchio called
blowout of Brooklyn.
The beatdown in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Completely crushed St. Francis, and in fact turned St. Francis red.
Yeah. St. Francis mathematically eliminated from 8th place out of the tournament. In Central Connecticut, very, very close to it.
Very close, Central Connecticut. That could happen this weekend. It's not quite there mathematically yet, but only the top 8 teams qualify for the NEC tournament. So St. Francis has a couple of regular season games left, but they won't. That'll be it for them.
Right.
St. Mary's on the road coming up Saturday at Fairleigh Dickinson in a pretty interesting one.
Yep. So that one's big, but fun league, probably heading to Dayton. But again, in this conference tournament, it's always a show. You absolutely have to watch it.
Always fun games, all played on the campus sites the way it should be.
Right. And the venues are fantastic. They're just these small bandboxes. It's awesome.
Another team that's in red here at the bottom of the Ohio Valley Conference. Again, only 8 teams in this tournament, and SIU Edwardsville joining Oregon State and North Carolina A&T winless again in conference play and out already of the conference tournament.
Right. This league takes 8 teams. They are mathematically out. Belmont, who's a team that we really liked coming into this week, lost their first conference game, kind of surprising, going to Tennessee Tech and just not looking good at all. I think you and I were watching that, or at least going on email, and it just didn't look right after they looked so good all through conference play.
David, I do need to get a prediction from you here. I don't do many of these, but what do you think about the game coming up next Tuesday against Trevecca Nazarene?
Pain.
Yeah,
I think that they should consider playing. Who was it that was playing Elmo or Elmar?
It's.
But again, like they had been in our top 10, but John Stalika was not voting for them. John, why don't you like this Belmont team?
David, he's still not here.
Oh, well, he normally joins us on Under the Radar, so.
Let's go over to the Patriot League, where Bucknell had been running away with the league, David, and
losing. And have we updated this? Is that current?
Current.
Okay, so Boston U just a game behind them, which means it is possible. It is possible with the game coming up that this conference tournament will be played on the roof. Well, not the whole tournament, but like all the way through to the championship game.
Yeah, there they are. Bucknell at BU. This will be the second matchup of the two teams. Bucknell did win the first one, so it's going to come down to the tiebreakers beyond head-to-head. Should BU get this win, uh, but then there's still a couple other games left. Bucknell still has to play Navy at home, for example, to end the regular season.
Right.
Very good Navy team this year.
Yeah, Navy and we were talking about them last week and how much fun it's been watching them. Lehigh, depending on the night, you think that they're great, and then other nights they just can't seem to punch their way out of a paper bag. So I don't know if they're going to win the whole thing by winning each game by 20 points or lose their first conference tournament game.
Or if the 8 seed's going to come out and win it all again as it did last year.
Which would be fun. I would love it if Army was somehow able to do that.
Got to mention it here coming up Saturday, David. Round 2 of Army-Navy as well.
Yeah, always fun.
And I think that'll be on CBS Sports Network. I think it's nationally televised.
Yeah, it typically is. So, but this is starting to look a little more like the Patriot League.
SoCon.
Yeah,
I've been on the Furman bandwagon. You and Stalika, who is not with us, have not joined me yet. Are you ready to yet?
I don't see how we can not.
They had to play an amazing schedule. They had to play 4 games in the last 7 days and won all 4 of them.
They did. And how are you not with them? And again, the team that we liked or that I liked coming into the year, Chattanooga, just they've outperformed them. They've outperformed East Tennessee State, who won a big game tonight against Samford, who's just seems to be cursed. But yeah, how about Furman?
Here's the last 3 games. It is Greensboro, and that game at East Tennessee coming up on next Wednesday may decide the regular season title.
And look at that, Chad. You mentioned 4 games in 7 days. How about 5 of 7 on the road, winning all of them?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just a real big push by a Furman team that 2 years ago was the last. Was it 2 years ago that they finished last and then made a run to the championship game? So, I mean, I know Stalika likes East Tennessee State and Chattanooga, but are you with us, Stalika, that Furman is probably the best team here?
David, he's still not here.
Oh, well, he normally is. Like, it's under the radar. It's normally he's normally here with me and you.
We already talked about the South at the top of the show, so let's go over to the SWAC. And we almost had a new first place team here, just half a game back, the Alcorn State Braves.
Yeah, who's ineligible. So
and so once again, we got a big dividing line with them.
We got a big dividing line right where the right.
Actually, I believe in it. I still haven't got this 100% confirmed, but Alcorn State will be allowed to play in the SWAC tournament. Should they win it, whoever they beat in the finals will get the bid. So,
which I hate that. It's a championship tournament with the automatic bid. If you're going to do that, then I think you better be willing to give up your tournament bid.
Yeah, but especially because there's only 8 teams in the SWAC tournament this year, which means that a team like Mississippi Valley may not be allowed to play in the tournament while an ineligible team is.
Right. Now, why can't Mississippi Valley?
Because only the top 8 teams make the SWAC.
Oh, it's only the top 8. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's especially dumb.
They partially made their format a little better this year, though, David. The first round will be at campus sites. Then they go to Houston for the semis and the championship game.
Yeah, and real quick, I mean, I realize that we shovel a lot of dirt on this league because even by under the radar standards, it's pretty weak. But and this is not faint praise. I hope it's not taken that way, but Grambling, very much improved, having a very good year.
Double-digit wins for the Tigers already.
Yes, double-digit wins. And if you look at some of these, I mean, they've been very competitive. That game against Southern that you wrote up as the under-the-radar game of the week, great game. And, I mean, even when they're losing – they're in the games. It's not 20, 30-point margins every single night anymore. Really good job here by Grambling, and I realize they got a rough stretch coming up here, but I would love to see them somehow win the conference.
Well, 3 straight road games, but 3 winnable road games against the bottom of the conference, especially Mississippi Valley. We got to talk Alabama A&M as well because we teased this when we talked about North Carolina A&T.
Yeah.
Here's the team that's below them in all those ratings.
Right. Including, I just love that they're ranked 352 and that there's only 351 teams. because
I
yeah.
do. I do have a slight update here. They are tied at 343 in the ESPN strength of record. That is not last place. There is, I think, there's a couple teams that are below them. So there's a second tie around 348 or so. So
Oh,
they
okay.
have
Wow.
moved up a little bit. And one of the reasons there, David, was their last game. They were at Alabama State. They took them triple overtime. They lost, but they took a
Yeah.
Alabama State on the road to triple overtime.
Right. And that's I mean that's kind of dangerous. Now it's still a good loss. That's a sub 340 Alabama
It's a good
State
loss,
team.
but you got to lose big if you want to win the Centenary Award. You can't
Right.
lose triple overtime game.
Oh, it's an interesting debate between A&T and A&M.
We'll see what happens the rest of the way here, but we could have a very interesting debate on during championship week.
Right.
Uh, the Summit League, and
Oh, wow.
how about this North Dakota State collapse?
Yeah, I don't even know what to make of it. I mean they were looking so good until about a week and a half ago, and just losing at IPFW, who looked good out of conference, but has been the epitome of a collapse since it started. But the ones that really, the one at IUPUI is a little hard to make up for here.
Yeah. They lost again tonight, that Fort Wayne game, now tied with South Dakota. And they did beat Denver over the weekend. That was my under the radar game of the day, but when that game
Yeah,
happened. But here we go. The South Dakota team now. This week they are going to be hosting Oral Roberts. I think that's their only game in the next 7 days. Uh, this could be your favorite now to win the conference, especially with the conference tournament being in South Dakota.
yeah, they could be. A lot of teams could win this tournament. I mean, if you look at the standings, I realize that in this case, everybody's kind of geographically spread out. I still wish they did it on the home floor of the first place team if you can't be zigzagging all across the Summit League. But
You don't want teams going from Fort Wayne to Denver overnight.
no, I
Okay.
think that would be bad. But I do think that if South Dakota or North Dakota State were to finish first, they should get it on campus. But when you look at this league and you watch the games, you get the sense that, I know it's cliche, but you get the sense that anybody really could beat anybody. So, I mean, don't be surprised if we see some teams in the 6-7 lower half of the bracket winning in the quarterfinals.
Uh, Over in the Sun Belt, and talk about a conference.
Look,
You have no idea who the hell is going to win it. This is amazing. There is 2 games in the loss column separating first place from sixth place,
yeah.
and any of those 6 teams at this point. I mean, you can pick them out of the hat.
Right. Texas Arlington has the best credentials. They have the best win by far. In fact, they have a better win than what a lot of teams on the bubble are going to have. In fact, if Texas
At
Arlington
St.
wins,
Mary's was that win.
yeah, at St. Mary's. In fact, if Texas Arlington does win out, are they on the bubble?
Well, let's pull up their RPI breakdown here. So this is a little bit of a better way to at least evaluate some of these bubble.
Yeah.
There, that is the win at St. Mary's, also the home win against Arkansas State. The problem is those 3 bad losses. Now, 2 of them are teams that they're battling with here, but they are sub 150 losses. Texas
Yeah.
State and Coastal. They've also still have 6 games left, including a huge week this week at Georgia State and at Georgia Southern.
Yeah, if they pick both of those up, their
those-
RPI is going to probably be in the 30s. And, their overall record away from home is, if we could go up and see it, I don't know what it is offhand, but I know it's.
The overall road record.
Yeah.
Road win loss is 8-6.
Yeah, I mean, 8 wins away from home. That gets them to 10. RPI top 40 with 10 wins away from
It'd
home.
be 12 if you include these 2
Right.
against the Louisiana.
You're
schools.
starting to get into the categorical range of a team that gets picked. I don't want to say that it's for sure, but I do think that if they're able to win those last 6 games, the committee will look at them. I know John Stalika, who's with us, has been talking them up quite a bit too. Big fan, other than the 3 losses. Like, what do you think, John?
David,
What?
John's not with us tonight.
Oh, I keep thinking he is. Like he normally is. It's under the radar. He's normally with us.
He's not here tonight.
Uh,
Let's like we said, actually, with the Sun Belt, those big games coming up for Arlington at Georgia State and at Georgia Southern this week.
yeah.
Texas State is at those same 2 schools, so 4 of those 6 teams battling each other head to head this week. Should be some real good games coming up over the next few days here in the Sun Belt.
Mm-hmm.
Let's end things in terms of these conferences over in the WAC.
Yeah,
Once again, the team in red is separating us again, correct?
Yes. New Mexico State had about as pathetic of a week. Now, they did play the top 2 teams. What they did not do was almost beat any of them.
It's not. They weren't a pair of 1-point losses. We'll put it that way.
Right. Bakersfield blew them out if you look at the score, but the game wasn't even that close. Weren't they down by 30 at one point or something?
Bad.
Yeah. And
I want to know who in the coaches poll is still voting them in the top 25 after that week, though.
Right.
We need an investigation in this one.
I know. Who is it that does that? Gary Parrish. He needs to get on that. It might be whoever votes from this conference.
But here we are, Bakersfield now in first place. Are they your team?
I think so. They've looked better than everybody else. When they blow out New Mexico State the way they did, and I know it was at home, it's hard to not like them the best.
Only the one conference loss was a 5-point loss at New Mexico State.
Yeah.
And they won at Grand Canyon already.
Yeah, this is a soccer term, but if you look at the aggregate, Bakersfield had definitely won that.
No, we don't do aggregates, David. I'm going to go ahead and pull this down here, and let's see here. We're going to move on to a couple other things. I think we'll start with our under-the-radar top 10 lists.
Yes.
Can you tell the people that are not familiar with what we do with these under-the-radar top 10 lists?
It's basically a cross-country vote. It works the way that the top 25 you see on television is only, instead of the coaches or the AP writers, it's the Hoops HD staff ranking those that qualify or that fit the definition of the top 10. And I see that I bet I know who number 1 is once again. The team of the people.
The New Hampshire Wildcats, absolutely. Every single loss they've been cheated out of.
Right, yes. And I mean, you have to, people might look at that and say, well, how can you put them number 1? Well, you have to look at the matrix. You have to watch the games. Like, we get analytical when we do this, and we know that they were cheated out of those wins.
Right. So. And David, when it comes down to it, with we've done a little research here. No team has ever finished the season number 1 in our Hoops HD under the radar top 10 list and failed to get an automatic bid and not gotten that large instead.
Right. Yes. I mean, they've been inside the bubble every single time.
From there, coming in at 1B here is Wichita State, and number 2, Middle Tennessee. This was actually a tie between the 2 teams.
Okay.
I think it's pretty much I personally think Wichita State's slightly better than Middle Tennessee, but I base it more on metrics than on resume, just because those number 16 metrics just blow me away, and I just can't overlook those.
No, I understand that.
Wilmington coming in 3rd.
Yeah, still like this team, although their paper took a hit. And it's just kind of unfortunate that, coming in the conference play, these are supposedly under the radar conferences, easy conferences. There was about 6 or 7 teams that we thought had done enough to warrant being inside the bubble. But because they don't get any chances to offset any slip-ups, they fall out. Wilmington is probably good enough to be inside the bubble and would have made it if they got to play at least NIT caliber teams every now and then. I like them.
Number 4, Illinois State came in. That's the other team out of the Missouri Valley. And number 5, that Valpo team we discussed earlier.
Yeah. And, I mean, again, where did you vote Illinois State? I think I had them right there. I know John Stalika. John, did you have them right there?
David, he's not with us.
Oh. Well, we're doing the under the radar top 10.
Illinois State would have been higher if Stalika had been with us. I personally had them, I think, 5th or 6th. I did have them up there, though. Monmouth there at number 6.
Yeah.
Akron coming in at 7. Vermont.
I like that Vermont. Yeah.
They're at 8. They've been slowly making their way up that top 10 list the last few weeks.
Right.
Number 9, Texas Arlington, back solidly in the field again this week.
Yeah, I put them in mine. So.
And number 10, we didn't see anything there. Up there they are, the Princeton.
Oh,
Tigers,
Princeton! Woo.
Sneaking in.
Yeah.
Based on my vote, I think I had them up at number 8, and that kind of helped propel them up to there. And the only other team that received any votes was Belmont.
Okay, yeah. So
So that was our top 10 list for the week. We have one last thing that we want to do. David, on our website, we have what's called our Hoops HD Survival Board.
Right.
What is that for those that aren't familiar with it?
Well, it's essentially everybody that's still playing during the season that could still make the NCAA tournament, either as an at-large or as an automatic bid. And, you know, you highlighted some teams in red tonight. Those teams are not on the survival board because they've been mathematically eliminated. But more importantly, it's a great tool for the selection committee because it lets them know who's still playing, and it lets them know whether or not they should take this team, whether they should consider this team, or whether they shouldn't consider this team at all, whether, you know, unless they win the automatic bid. So what they do, they come right to our site, they pull up the survival board, and it's just such a wonderful tool for them.
And we had an update. We like to do the updates live, especially when we get to championship week. We were going to do a live update today. We had a minor computer malfunction, but we'll show you the results of the update. Here they are on the screen now. It was at 343 heading into today. We are now 342 teams left after St. Francis Brooklyn's elimination.
Right, and so we're down to 342, and all of these teams, there they are by conference, can still win. And you might notice right now we have some teams that are in regular text and some teams that are in italics. The italics are teams that they could all conceivably still get in as an at-large bid. Like in some of it's a long shot. Like you know, we have like BYU on there. If they would have to win out, and that would mean winning at St. Mary's and at Gonzaga. But if they do that, the committee might look at them. And we have others like UTVRG there, Cal State Bakersfield, that will simply need the automatic bid. And you see, Chad, they're not in italics. So when the committee pulls it up and they look at the WAC conference, they realize, oh, okay, so Cal State Bakersfield, we don't need to be giving them an at-large bid.
Correct.
Yes.
And you're going to see this update. Take a look at this. We don't do a podcast every night until we get to championship week, but you could see daily updates on here. We have Eastern Kentucky with a potentially being eliminated tomorrow even. A few others that may come up over the weekend. You're actually going to start seeing probably early next week, if not by next couple of days here, some of these teams turning into bold as well. Those are teams that we're going to consider to be locks that can lose every single game left in their schedule and still make the field. In fact, we probably should have locked up a few of them already, but we'll work on that off air. Yeah. But I guess on that note, David, do you have any other final thoughts for us?
No, it's hard to believe how fast the season's going. I guess it seems like literally just weeks ago we were on here that first week running down the exempt tournaments and talking about the under-the-radar teams and those and what they had to do. It's just flown by.
I guess on that note, on behalf of David Griggs, John Slika, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah. Chad, he's not with us.
What? You told me all night that he was here.
Well, no, he normally is. It's under the radar. But
I guess that on behalf of David Griggs, John, not here, Stalika, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again real soon.